After seeing his preseason performance, has Justin Fields moved up in your rankings at all? That much, much more coming on today's episode of the Football Guys Mailbag Show. Troy, I want to start with you. We saw Justin Fields put on a show this weekend. Has that adjusted your rankings?
No, it hasn't. It's preseason. It's preseason, For me, again, if you want to move him up 1 to 2 spots or whatever, that's fine. But for me, I'm staying put. Let me see. I don't even know if he's going to be starting, right? I don't even know if he's going to be starting in week 1, right? It's supposed to be the Andy Dalton show. So for me, I don't think there's any reason to move him yet. Did he seem impressive? Yeah, I think he did really well, but I'm not going to get too crazy. He's good. He looked good, but he's staying where he is.
All right. Victoria, I'm going to ask you a similar but kind of different question. Has he moved in your rankings, and is he your QB1 as far as rookies go?
Oh, I like that question. I did move him, but like Troy said, just a couple spots. I've got him at QB21. That might be a little rich, but to me, there's not a world where Dalton's going to play the full season, right? Head coach on the hot seat. Likely, I don't know what the Vegas bets are right now, but he's likely to maybe be fired if they have a terrible season. He's going to face extreme scrutiny the very moment Dalton screws up or falters, and we know he will. Fields, the fans, Dave, I know you're going to be chanting for Fields, right? And he's probably likely going to be electric to watch. In the preseason game, he ran the ball well. He rolled out well. He wasn't on fire or he didn't do anything particularly insane, but he looked plenty capable to command that offense. So I don't know. I hope there's an early game that we see him in week 4 potentially, but for rookie QBs, I mean, I've been high on Fields this whole season. I love this kid. I keep going back to the Clemson game when he took that shot in the ribs, and just who comes back out on fire? Who doesn't want a kid like that to lead your team? So I don't know. For fantasy, I don't know if I'd say he's my top rookie QB, but in real life, yeah, it totally is.
Yeah, it's really tough because we don't know when he's going to start, and that's really the only thing holding him back. Like, if we knew he was the week 1 starter, I think you'd almost have to slot him in as an overall QB1, a top 12 guy, because with that rushing upside, he's going to give you an immense floor. And then we saw it. Like, he just put on an absolute clinic. He got off to a rough start. He had that fumble, and then he had that dropped interception. But it seemed like once his nerves calmed down a little bit and he was flowing, I mean, that was a level of play from a Bears quarterback that I haven't ever seen before. I'm being completely honest here. And sure, it was against a third-team Miami defense, so try not to read too far into it. But still, just seeing a guy that can feel the pressure in the pocket, move around while keeping his eyes downfield, and if there isn't an open receiver, having that ability to just tuck the ball and run, that just adds such a new dimension to the team that we have not seen before as Chicago Bears fans. So everybody likes showing off that, the Jesse James touchdown that he threw, and that was a very nice play. But for me, it was the rushing touchdown, which would have been a sack. Like, if you look at that play, Andy Dalton would have gone down. Mitch Trubisky, Nick Foles, Rex Grossman, you name it, any quarterback the Bears have had would have gone down. And he was not only able to break the sack, but then swing out and run in, drop his head down, and break the play into the end zone for a touchdown. So I loved it. I still don't think that he's the rookie QB1, just because we know Trevor Lawrence is going to start a full season, and that alone makes him a little bit higher. But once Fields takes over, I think that you'll start seeing him in weekly rankings creeping up ahead of Trevor Lawrence. Well, we've got a lot to get to on today's show. Some great questions now that we actually had some real football this weekend. Sure, it was preseason, but it was football. So I want to thank everyone for tuning into another episode of the Football Guys Mailbag Show. Just a reminder that you can send any of the questions you have to mailbag@footballguys.com. You'll see that on the right side of the screen right here. And if you are unable to submit a question in, don't worry. Just drop it in the chat right now, and we will get to it at the very end of the show. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube page at youtube.com/footballguys. TV to see this show and everything else that we offer. Before we jump in, I know we've got a mobile app right now that has been getting some great reviews. Troy, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Of course. Well, y'all, be sure to download the Football Guys mobile app today. If you haven't already, it can be used on all smartphones and gives you the same tools that you'd find on the website. Our Draft Dominator app will make sure that you have the edge on your teammates because you're able to customize it for your specific team. Download today so Football Guys can help you win.
All right, well, let's get right in because we got some great questions here. We started off with my Bears. Now we're moving on to Troy's Dolphins. We got Jake Miller asking us, what are the thoughts on the report about the Miami backfield being a 3-back committee? Troy, these are your Dolphins, so let's start with you. What do you think?
I think it's still, I believe it was exactly what I, believed previously. I don't know about the 3-headed monster. I still am a little skeptical about that. I know Salvin Ahmed, he's looked good in preseason and in relief last year when Gaskins was hurt. I still believe that Gaskins is the back to own. I've been saying all offseason that Malcolm Brown is going to be a TD vulture. And we saw that a little bit in the preseason, right? Obviously, they're not going to run Gaskins that much, but we saw Malcolm Brown being used on the goal line. He's a bigger body back. Unfortunately, he wasn't very effective during the preseason game. Granted, Chicago's defense is good, but I believe that we're going to see a lot of that during the season. It's going to be frustrating for anyone who starts Gaskin. But at the end of the day, Gaskin, to me, is the RB that you want, and he's going to get the majority of the carries.
What do you think, Victoria? How are you feeling about this? What looks like it's going to be a committee in Miami?
My first thought is I hate it. First of all, we all were hyping up the Gas Man to be a fantastic value throughout this summer in the offseason. He's been in the RB20 and up range. And now everybody's going crazy because we saw Malcolm Brown take 9 carries for 8 yards. Like, are we good? Like, he just, like Troy said, he was not great. He did double Gaskin in snaps with the starters. Of course, his touches were that disparity was even bigger. But we had to remember he's 28 years old. In my opinion, I don't know about Troy, but I like Ahmed. I think he's more talented than Brown, and sometimes last season, to me, he looked on par with Gaskin when he took over when Gaskin was injured. And, maybe Flores was just seeing what he had in Brown for the first game. I don't know. Do we honestly expect Malcolm Brown is just going to take over and lead this backfield? No, I'm still the highest on Gaskin, and that I'm with Troy that Brown's going to steal some shorter yardage work, goal line work, but Gaskin's the main pass catching back, and as long as he's healthy, I don't want to overreact to week one preseason game. So.
And you're right on there. I mean, Gaskin is going to be the pass catching back, and that's what you want in fantasy because those are the premium touches. But I don't know if Gaskin's going to be the goal line back. So you might have one guy playing goal line, one guy taking the pass catching work, some guy in between the 20s, and that makes for very volatile weeks from all of these guys. But doesn't this feel a little bit like last offseason when everybody was beating the drum for Jordan Howard, saying, hey, Jordan Howard's going to be the lead back in Miami, and then Myles Gaskin comes out of nowhere. Now heading into this offseason, we're all expecting Myles Gaskin to be the guy, and here's Malcolm Brown. And, Malcolm Brown, he's a guy that when you look at just his rushing efficiency and those metrics, there's nothing that's really that exciting, but he does the dirty work that coaches love. He's great in pass protection, and that's what keeps him on the field. So last year, by all metrics, Cam Akers was the better rusher, but Malcolm Brown was still this pesky thorn in the side that just wouldn't go away because coaches love him. So, I think that Gaskin is the better pass catcher and the better rusher. It does worry me that Malcolm Brown is going to have a pretty hefty role in this offense that's just going to make everybody, I don't want to say worthless, but at least very unpredictable in fantasy football. Troy, do you have anything else? I know this is your team. Do you want to add anything else to this before we move on to the next question?
No, I was saying that's one of the reasons why I'm a little bit lower on Salvin Ahmed. It's because, just like you said, coaches love Malcolm Brown. They brought him in for a reason. They brought him in because, again, he does everything fine. He doesn't do anything excellent. He does everything fine, and that's going to get him touches, especially with the pass blocking. So Salvin Ahmed, he's not really going to see anything unless there's an injury. And I know a lot of people have been wanting Jared Dokes to get more snaps because they also, they drafted him this year. He's a bigger body running back, but I don't see how he gets any playing time, or significant playing time. So again, I still believe Gaskin is the guy, but Malcolm Brown is going to be annoying for fantasy.
The only people who want to see Dokes are the people who had their late round draft picks in Dynasty, and they just want some kind of asset out of him, let's be honest.
Yeah. It's the analytics people, man. They love those big boys, and that's what Jared Dokes is. He's a big guy, so he fits that analytical profile of a 3-down back, and that gets people all excited about it. But I still think that Gaskin is the guy to own here. But it was kind of weird because last year, Salvin Ahmed, he stepped in, and he looked great in his role. And then as soon as Gaskin came back from injury, it's like he was just relegated to nowhere again. So you kind of got to look at the money, too. They spent $3.5 million on Malcolm Brown this offseason. You don't spend that much money on a running back just to keep him on the bench and do nothing at all. So I'm not ready to adjust my rankings quite yet because I don't want to be overreactionary, but I'm going to be keeping a close eye on this situation. And if we see Malcolm Brown coming out with the starters again next week, I might have to bump Myles Gaskin down my rankings just a bit. Before we move to the next question, I just want to remind that we do close the show by going to the chat and answering all the questions in there. So I'm already seeing some questions in. Keep dropping those questions in the chat, and we will answer them live for you in just about 20 minutes. All right, we got Thomas Johnson asking us a question here, and we will start with you on this one, Victoria. What do we do with Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert? Who do you prefer at their ADP? For anyone unfamiliar, Goedert is getting drafted in the 7th to 8th round, and Ertz is going undrafted. I mean, you can just snag him in pretty much the last round of your draft right now. So, Victoria, what are we doing with these guys in Philly?
This is tricky, and I personally hate it because I've been so high on Goedert for the season. It's looking more and more like we're not going to be getting Goedert tight end one season. Ertz is staying, and I think it was the news today that Tyree Jackson, quarterback turned tight end, suffered an injury. I think he'll be out for quite some time. So I don't see a world where they're trading away Ertz, at least not right now. And as you said, Dave, Goedert is tight end 8, I think, right now, an underdog ADP. He'll likely fall a little bit these next couple of weeks, but probably not enough for me to take the shot on him now. Ertz is listed as tight end 25, like you said, undrafted likely in your redraft leagues. He's going to be a steal if he stays, right? He's not going to climb high enough in time for draft season. The same thing I said about Goedert, but they're both going to eat into each other's target share. That's the thing that's going to suck. And I'd be concerned about that. Although on the flip side, they have Devontae Smith, the most talented wide receiver on the roster. And aside from that insane Jalen Reagor catch, I'm sure you guys saw it the other day. Like, who else is the top talent on the team? It's Goedert and Ertz. So, maybe Ertz can support them both, but the more likely situation is that they're just going to disappoint you week in and week out and barely give you that floor, and certainly not enough to win your week. So I guess I'd rather take Ertz because he's going undrafted. I hate to say that because I was so high on Goedert. I really was. So.
Yeah, we'll talk about this a little bit because this is a great topic. But Troy, I want to get your take on this. What are we doing with this situation right now? Because like Victoria alluded to, everybody thought Dallas Goedert was the guy this year, and now it isn't looking so clear.
I mean, Victoria kind of, summed it up perfectly well. I don't want Goedert because going into the season, we all expected Ertz to be traded. For some reason, he's still on the team. And I believe that's one of the reasons why his ADP was justified, because it was factoring in the fact that Ertz wasn't going to be in town. Not the fact that he's still lingering. He's going to be involved in the offense, right? He's not a sexy pick, but he's going to be, somebody who's going to be getting part of the target share. So for me, I would either look to another tight end that's going in Goedert's range, or between these two, obviously I would just wait and to take Goedert off waivers Ertz off waivers, because again, there's no guarantee that Goedert's going to be the main target. We all want him to. And I think in fantasy, the problem is we have our guys and we're wishing that they are going to be the dude. But in reality, there's a very good chance that Ertz is going to be the tight end one on this team. So because of that, I'll just take Ertz in this case.
Yeah, I'm with you. And one thing I want to point out is you said that we all expected Zach Ertz to get traded. I've been trying to say this for a while. I didn't see any situation where they were going to be able to trade away Zach Ertz. He's a 30-year-old catch and fall tight end that's owed $8 million this year. Like they've been trying to trade him since the end of last season, and there was no market for Zach Ertz at all. I think his best days are behind him, and that's why Philly was so adamant on wanting to ship him off. And there were no suitors, so I think that they're just kind of stuck with Zach Ertz at this spot. But given ADP, I would much rather have Zach Ertz too, because right now people are still falling for the Dallas Goedert trap for whatever reason. He's still getting drafted way higher than he should be, and with Ertz being essentially free, I think he is the better pick. Now, so many people are quick to talk about how just 2 years ago in 2019, both of these guys finished as tight end ones. That is not going to happen again this year. Like there is almost a 0% chance that these guys both finish as tight end ones. Carson Wentz was a check down king, and they didn't have a run-first quarterback. They didn't have Devonta Smith. So I don't see any scenario where both of these guys finish top 12 in their position. I don't know who the odd man out is going to be, but given where it takes to draft Dallas Goedert, I'm just completely off at his ADP, and I'd be waiting until a little bit later to get Zach Ertz. We got a question in here from Twitter, and it's saying, I'm in a league, and our lineup is 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 2 flex, and 8 kickers. So pretty standard, and we'll just assume that this is PPR. He's saying, I'm up at pick 8. What would your advice be in terms of strategy for this kind of setup? Troy, do you want to start? If you're in this league, who are you hoping to get at 8? And you know what? Let's even help a little bit more. Who are you hoping to get at 8? And then who are you hoping to get with that early second-round pick as well?
Sure. So we're not even necessarily like a specific player, just because I'm the type of guy that I just go the way my draft goes, right? So I try to be flexible with my strategy, but preferably in this type of setup, I want to get my 2 running backs because it's saying only 1 wide receiver, right? So that already devalues the wide receiver position. Oh, sorry, no, two wide receivers, sorry. But regardless, wide receiver is deeper. So for me, I'm always trying to get my elite running backs early because they thin out quicker. So most likely I'm going to get 2 elite running backs, and then I'll probably wait on QB and I'll wait on tight end, unless I can get one of the elite tight ends, but you're going to have to spend an early pick. So at 8, there's possible I may be looking at Travis Kelce, if he happens to be there. Otherwise, I'm going to just go with my running back strategy. And then again, I'll wait on wide receiver, wait on QB, and I'll wait on tight end if I'm not going to go to Travis Kelce route and like a George Kittle, Darren Waller isn't available to me.
Yeah, because if you want Darren Waller, you almost need to take that early second-round pick because he's not making it back to you in the late third. So if you do want one of those guys, I mean, you might luck out and get George Kittle there with a late third, but you're gonna need to pay up either for Kelce or Darren Waller with that 1 or 2 pick. Victoria, what are you trying to do here?
I had a similar answer. I think I'm going running back early due to the scarcity of the position. If somebody like Aaron Jones is still there at 8, I'm high on Austin Eckler this season, a guy like that for PPR. And likely if Kelsey's there at the turn with my next pick, I'd take him. If he's not, if Waller's there, Waller's very enticing. But if there's somebody like Ridley or Diggs there as well, Diggs probably won't fall that far. He could, though, depends on your league. That would be a little more enticing, and then I would probably wait on tight end until the very late rounds, since those mid-tier tight ends we've talked about can sometimes burn you. So I'd probably have a similar approach to Troy.
So I definitely want to leave one of these picks with a running back. And I know a lot of people are getting really big on the 0 running back approach now. Taking 2 running backs here would be nice if 2 guys fall at value. But at that 8th pick, that's where I start looking at the 2 high-end receivers. I have Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams in a tier of their own in my wide receiver rankings this year. So that's, I feel like there's kind of a fall off after the top 7 or 8. So I'd be okay taking Tyreek Hill or Devontae Adams if they fall to me at 8 here. I'm not too keen on taking Travis Kelce because I feel like, getting Darren Waller in the second round is very similar value without having to pony up that high first round pick. So I'm probably not taking Kelce there. But if I do end up with Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill with my first pick, I'm almost guaranteed to take the best available running back there. I don't want to be heading into the late third round without a single running back because then it gets pretty thin. And as much as I love Chris Carson and David Montgomery at their value, you don't want those guys being your running back ones heading into the season. So I like the 8 pick this year. I think it gives you a lot of flexibility and you can really kind of play the board and how other people are drafting. So hope we were able to give you some good advice there, Jake McConnell. We got a question in from Michael Slatkin. He is in a 12-team half PPR league. Who do I keep? Lamar Jackson in the 7th round or TJ Hawkinson in the 10th round? This is a great question. Victoria, you seem excited about this. You take it first. Who are you keeping here?
I'm excited because this is your most disliked player versus your favorite player. So I can't wait to hear your take on this. For me here, it's Hawkinson easily. I read a fantastic article today by Scott Barrett, and I think it was called Anatomy of a League Winner. So in his research on a normal 12-team ESPN league, he ended up concluding that the top quarterback provides just as much value as the top defense, which to me was wild to read. There's a lot of numbers and a lot of stats. If you're into that, check that out. Check that article out. But he said quarterbacks outscore all other positions, of course, but they're the least scarce. Then they're almost tied with defense and kickers. So they're the least valuable position in this kind of format, which is, to me, it hurts my brain, right? A little bit. Maybe you guys too, because we all prefer to take kind of a stud quarterback if we could get Dak or, somebody like Jalen Hurts in the later rounds. But Hawkinson gives you that upside, and it could be tremendous upside this season going into his third year. He's the top target right outside of Swift on a team that's going to need to pass a lot. They're going to be down all the time. Jared Goff's arm is going to fall off, I think. So I'm going Hawk here.
Troy, who are you taking?
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm gonna go Hawk too. Oof. So I'm gonna go Hawk because you know what? He's a top 5 tight end this year. Given the circumstances, like Victoria already alluded to, he should be the top pass catcher on his team. We already know how tight end is very unpredictable. So there's only some of them are going to be guaranteed target share. And I believe Hawkinson is one of them. QB, just like Victoria already said, it's deeper. I love Lamar, but in the 7th round, you can get somebody else. You can get other quarterbacks in that range that won't Lamar could, will he outproduce them? Maybe, but how much are they going to outproduce him? Which Hawkinson, again, I don't, with the other tight ends going, it's just, I don't know what the target share is going to be like for, the tight end 9 off the board, tight end 10 off the board. But Hawkinson, he's set up to be the leading wide receiver on his team. And, again, just like Victoria said, they're going to have to pass a lot. And in the 10th round, you don't get top 5 tight ends in the 10th round. So based off that, I'm going Hawk.
Yeah, I know you guys think that I'm just sitting here just pumping on my players and hating on guys that I hate on, but I'm going to agree with both of you here. I'm taking TJ Hawkinson in the 10th round here. And, I do have Lamar Jackson ranked as my quarterback 1, and I got Hawkinson as my tight end 5. But like you alluded to, and you talked about Scott Barrett's article, I really think that, the difference between like quarterback 1 and quarterback 5 this year is going to be so slim. And I've got Lamar Jackson as my quarterback 1 because I think he's got a higher floor and a higher ceiling than the rest of the guys. But I'd be just as happy with Dak Prescott or Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, any of those guys. And realistically, one of them might fall to you in the 7th round. People are freaking out about Dak Prescott right now, and he's dropping into the 6th or 7th round. There is a 0% chance that you're getting anybody in the first 2 tiers of tight ends in the 10th round. So for that reason, I'd take Hawk here. And then just, maybe you reach a little bit earlier and grab one of those top 5 quarterbacks if that's really what you want on your team as well. But you can do that in the 5th or 6th round, and there's no chance that you're getting somebody of TJ Hawkinson's value in the 10th round. So we are agreeing 3 ways on this one. Michael, I hope that we gave you the answer you were looking for. TJ Hawkinson in the 10th pick in the 10th round is what you're doing here. Matthew Bingham, thank you, Matthew. We see your questions coming in every single week and appreciate the support. Matthew is asking us, in full PPR leagues, are you prioritizing receptions and volumes or upside and touchdowns with your early wide receiver picks? The example here would be Keenan Allen, a volume monster, versus A.J. Brown, who probably won't see the volume, but is an absolute yak machine that is going to score from anywhere on the field. Troy, start us off here. What are you looking for with these early round receivers?
This is probably one of my favorite questions that we've received. I'm going Keenan Allen. Because I prefer the receptions volume because he also has the upside because of the receptions and the volume that he has. Is he AJ Brown? Is he going to be as exciting? Is he? Maybe not. But to me, I believe that I know that I'm not going to say AJ Brown's boom or bust, but there might be times where, especially with Julio in town, there might be games where he might fall off a bit, right? So for me, I like the steady Eddie and Keenan Allen. I believe he's always undervalued. So just give me Keenan Allen in this particular scenario.
So, Victoria, what do you say? And if you want to go with the exact players, go ahead. But do you have a little bit about the strategy here besides what you're looking for? Let's hear what you got to say about this, Victoria.
This is tough because I think in the past couple of years, I'd like to take guys that were safe, right? Or who we deem to be safe. I think we've had this conversation a couple times on the show. But I'm taking that approach in some leagues. And this year I'm going other leagues for upside. I'm reading a lot of stuff. I tweeted today, upside wins championships, right? Not to say like a guy like Keenan Allen, a consistent guy, or like Diggs, 10 plus receptions per game. Not that they don't have high ceilings, but somebody like A.J. Brown can just explode, like you said, yak monster at any point. So if you even want to go in the middle, couple A.J. Brown with a guy like Bobby Woods to give you a floor, you can do that. But I think this year I'm going to try to shoot for upside with not just the picks at later in my draft where all you you want to go for upside with all your late round picks. I think I'm going to do that in the beginning of my drafts too, because in the past I've said, hey, this player's risky. I've talked about this on the show, Dalvin Cook, injury risk, and then he exploded in one people leagues last year. So I just don't want to be out on somebody because their floor might be low from week to week. And I think I'm changing that perception. It's hard to change something that you've been trained to do and how to draft over the years, but I think I'm trying to change that a little bit this year. So I'm going to go for that upside and touchdowns this year.
Yeah, this is an interesting conversation. And, there's so many, I feel like you can kind of contort the numbers to make an argument for either side. For me personally, I really like it. It's a mantra that I've heard a lot. You're not going to win your leagues in the first couple rounds, but you can very likely lose your leagues in the first couple rounds. So I'm trying to draft safer guys early on, and then I start chasing the upside later in my draft. So when I'm looking at these early round wide receivers, I like Keenan Allen a lot. I like Allen Robinson. I like even Deontay Johnson. He's somebody that I'm moving up in my boards a little bit. And as fun as DK Metcalf and AJ Brown and these explosive players are, somebody that's going to give you a safe week-to-week floor, as long as you draft a guy that's going to finish as a wide receiver one and you draft him as a wide receiver one, that's what I'm looking for. And I'm not looking for the immense upside. What I'm looking for are the guys later on that are going to have that really high upside that can be difference makers for me. So with the early round picks, I'm usually chasing opportunity ahead of efficiency and athleticism and, upside and touchdowns. But I think there's a very, very strong case to be made for either side. So great question, Matthew. As always, keep sending those in because you always have some real head scratches here that we like diving into. So we got a question here from David Pilling, and he's saying, thoughts on Kenny Gainwell and his potential usage? And our friend Z in the chat just asked us a similar question about Kenny Gainwell. He's wondering, can Kenny Gainwell get 150 touches in Philadelphia this year? So Victoria, start us off. Talk a little bit about Kenny Gainwell. What do you think?
150 touches, my goodness. I don't think so, and I feel like the reports coming out of camp that I've been seeing is that Boston Scott is lighting it up, and he's the receiving back that we want to own this year. Again, as much as we put our perceptions on our players, we want them to be this certain thing. I love Gainwell as a player, as a pass catcher. I think the 5th round he was a steal in the draft, in the NFL draft, but it seems like Boston Scott is the pass catching back to own this year and could be a steal. I've seen him go as high as running back 63, I think, on Underdog right now. So, Gainwell got that rookie excitement bump earlier in this offseason, and he very well could pull away maybe mid-season, end of season, and take that second spot behind Sanders. But likely Boston Scott is going to see that workload we want to see out of Gainwell. So I think I'll have a lot of Boston Scott on my rosters.
So one thing
Troy,
I wanted to –
what are you thinking about Kenny Gainwell?
Yeah. Something I wanted to bring up just in general, right? So I think a lot of people are fading Miles Sanders a bit because they're worried about Jalen Hurts rushing the ball instead of dumping it off. So with Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott, is Jalen Hurts is going to all of a sudden change that strategy? He's going to start dumping it off more? I'm worried about both Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott. I don't think that Kenny Gainwell is going to be some PPR machine. I feel like if you're going to go with, I just think he's just going to be another guy in the rotation, right? If I had to pick between the two, give me Boston Scott. I've seen Boston Scott do it before, but I'm worried about, if you're going to be worried about Miles Sanders not getting pass catching volume, then you should be worried about everyone behind him not getting pass catching volume. So I'm not personally interested in Kenny Gainwell as long as Hurts is the starter. I just don't see a path to significant volume or, whether it's rushing or target. So personally, I'm not very interested.
Yeah, I think that we're all just a little bit clouded by the Memphis running back factory that school has turned into lately. And I think that that's why people are getting a little bit excited about Kenny Gainwell. But Victoria hit it on the head. Boston Scott, I love that guy. All of the reports coming out of camp are that he is going to be pass catching back. And then Miles Sanders, people say that he's in this committee, and I don't see it. When he was healthy last year, he actually was a bit of a workhorse. And he wasn't healthy a lot last year, and that's kind of the problem, and that's what people ding him for. But, I think it's Miles Sanders' job to lose. I think Boston Scott is going to be the RB2 there. And I just don't see a scenario where Kenny Gainwell can really find a path to fantasy relevance this season. 150 touches, I think, is completely overshooting what his potential could be. I like the talent. I do, but I think that he is slotted in as the RB3 on that team. And an RB3 on a team with a run-first quarterback, that's just not something that I'm really into. Got another question from David here. He asked us a few, and we are going to get to all of them. In a league that rewards 0.1 points per yard for kick and punt returns, is Cordero Patterson worth rostering, given as there will be plenty of kick return opportunities in Atlanta? I haven't played in one of these leagues since 2008. I was in a Yahoo league that had points for this, and I wasn't a big fan of it. I haven't played a league like this since, but what's your insight? Troy, start us off here.
Absolutely. I'd be very interested in Cordero Patterson in this format. Granted, I think I've only played it once of myself, but I also think that Cordero Patterson is going to be used just in the offense in general. So that combined with this type of scoring, I think Cordero Patterson, I mean, in terms of all the other options that you're looking for in the league, Cordero Patterson fits it really well. We've seen him be a very successful punt and kick returner. So yes, give me Cordero Patterson in this format. I'd be pretty excited about him.
Victoria, do you have anything to add here?
I actually think I would not even think about this point reward when drafting at all. I feel like this is a distraction. 0.1 points per yard. How many times think about how many amazing kick returns or returns for a touchdown do we truly see during the season as opposed to every normal return is 5, 10, 15 yards maybe. For me, I don't think I would want this to distract me from drafting somebody else that has a little more opportunity maybe. I'm not saying that Patterson won't. I agree with you, Troy. He likely will. But to me, I'm just not even thinking about it. Although, if you're asking a question about drafting Patterson, this sounds like it might be a very deep league. So I'm not saying don't take the shot on him, but there's likely some other guys with higher upside going around that same ADP there. So
what I'd like to point out, because this is a tough question, and I had to do a little bit of digging on this because I really wasn't sure. First of all, I know that Cordero Patterson has been a fantastic kick returner throughout his entire career, but when I looked at the numbers, it actually blew my mind just how good he's been. There's only one guy that averages more yards per kick return than Cordero Patterson, and you have to go all the way back to the 1960s to find him. It's Gale Sayers, and it's not even a full yard. Cordero Patterson is averaging 29.8 yards per kick return. So that means every time he's taking a kickback, you're averaging 3 points. You know, if he takes the opening game kickoff and then they score another 4 or 5 times, you know, that can rack up pretty quickly. And now he's playing in a dome. He's going to be the kick returner there. It almost seems like he's going to have like a 10 to 12 point floor every single week just from kick returns. And then on top of that, I don't think that this team is sold on Mike Davis at all. I just am off the Mike Davis train. I don't think he's a good running back. I think that his numbers were inflated last year on a very, team or a running back friendly team, and he took on that Christian McCaffrey light role, and it worked out for half a season. But I'm not a believer in Mike Davis, and I don't think the Falcons are either. Cordero Patterson has already been taking snaps as a running back in camp. The team just went out and signed Donta Foreman, so I don't think they have a lot of faith in Mike Davis here. So I guess I'm all alone on my island here, but yeah, I'd be drafting Cordero Patterson. It seems like he can offer you a decent weekly floor with those kick returns. The only problem is every team has a guy that's doing kick returns, so they're all going to have similar floors. I mean, this is a great question, and I felt like I could have spent, 30 hours just digging on this question alone. So I wish I had some more insight for you, David, but thank you for the question. Let's move on to the next one. We've got Tony Anaya asking, if I go with a bully tight end concept, which running backs would you target in the middle rounds as your possible RB1s and RB2s? For those unfamiliar with the term bully tight end, a bully tight end is grabbing 2 of the top 3 tight ends early in your draft. So we talked about it. Travis Kelce goes in the first, Darren Waller goes in the early second, George Kittle goes in the late second. What a lot of people have been doing this year is snagging 2 of those guys with their early picks, going into round 3 with some combination of those 2 of those 3 tight ends. So if you do that, what running backs are you looking for? Victoria, I see a grimacing here.
That strategy gives me like icky feelings. I don't know how else to put it. I don't know how valuable that is, but this question is not asking if they should use it. It's saying they're going to, Tony. So good luck to you, sir. As far as this was tough. I was trying to look at underdog because some of the other redraft ADPs are probably not ready yet. I think I would go for some guys like if Swift is still there, if Chris Carson, I'll let Dave speak to his dude. Chris Carson is still there, David Montgomery. Even I'm coming around on Darrell Henderson. I know I'm still concerned about his injury woes that he deals with, but guys like that, even this is gross, but Josh Jacobs going to get the volume. Kenyon Drake came off the field today with some kind of injury. We'll stay up on that, but I think guys like that, I believe would be the range you're looking at. Correct me if I'm wrong, though, y'all.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what they're looking for, is that like third to fourth, fifth round that you were hitting at. So, Troy, do you want to speak a little bit about the bully tight end concept and then which running backs you'd be looking to target?
Sure. I would say that it's one of those strategies that it's so crazy it just might work because you obviously have an advantage over all your other teammates, your league mates for it. I've never personally tried it, but it does, again, you have an advantage because you have two elite tight ends. You can put one in your tight end spot, one in your flex. And with Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, they are outscoring a lot of wide receivers. So if we really think about it, it could be an advantageous strategy. And the running backs I'd be looking for, Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne is somebody that if you can do that strategy, I'm getting higher on him. And every time I mention him, I mention my friend Jeff Bell. He has an article on Footballguys. Check it out. It was one of the reasons why I started, buying more into the Travis Etienne trade because he's somebody that's going to be guaranteed targets. He's going to be used, as we've been hearing, like a wide receiver. And then there's David Montgomery, Miles Gaskin is in that range. I know that we just talked about the committee, but I still think he could be an RB1. Miles Sanders is going to be in that range. So I think you have a lot of options for middle running backs that you can use as your running back one if you want to go with this concept.
Yeah, I'll speak on the bully tight end concept for just a second because I think that if you're in a league that trades a lot, I think it's a great strategy. If you're trying to ride two tight ends through 16 weeks of the season, I don't know if I'm really getting behind that too much. But if you know that you can trade one of these guys as the season goes on, I love it because you're going to get immense trade value. And let's say, we saw it last year. Travis Kelce finished as what would have been the wide receiver 3 overall, just bonkers to even think about. And Travis and Darren Waller is probably not going to be much further behind. So, if they're on a pace like that and you want to ride 2 all season, I guess you can. But, we see it every single year where guys are trading away tight ends and they're giving up wide receivers and running backs that are averaging an extra 5 points a week because these guys are so desperate to fill that tight end spot because we know how it feels when you're streaming a tight end. It's not pretty. You don't like doing it. You're getting some weeks where you're getting 0.6 points and then you're getting, you're happy when you can manage 6 or 7 points out of your tight end. So I like this if you know that it's, a home league with people that are going to be trading a lot, but there's a lot of risk that goes into spending those 2 early picks on a tight end. So like Troy said, so crazy it may work. I'm not going to talk about the running backs to target because I think you guys hit all of the good ones there. Travis Etienne, absolutely. Chris Carson, David Montgomery. I feel like there's a lot of value in like the rounds 3 to 5, which is typically noted as the running back dead zone, but I kind of like it this year. So we got 2 questions left, and then we turn it over to the chat. So be sure to drop those, and we'll get to them in just a minute. But before then, David Pilling is asking us, is CeeDee Lamb the wide receiver 1 for Dynasty? And if not, who is? Who wants to take this question first? Victoria, you got a CeeDee Lamb take? I see Troy ready. All right, Troy, jump in.
He is not the wide receiver 1 for Dynasty. If I'm going to pick a wide receiver 1 for Dynasty, if I'm going to pick somebody, give me A.J. Brown. Give me someone like A.J. Brown because I prefer A.J. Brown. I prefer like a Justin Jefferson. There's guys I prefer over CeeDee. I think CeeDee's going to be a great wide receiver. I think he's elite. I just wouldn't put him as wide receiver 1 overall in Dynasty. He's definitely up there. I'll say top 5, sure. But number 1 overall, I like a couple of the guys better than him.
Victoria, is CeeDee Lamb your wide receiver 1? I feel like we heard this a lot, like week 2 or 3 last year, and then that kind of stopped a little bit. But what do you think about this?
I think somebody's watching a little bit too many episodes of Hard Knocks. That's what I think.
Yep.
It's been okay, right? I don't know. What do you guys? I'm just kidding. I agree. I would rather have those same guys. I had A.J. Brown listed here. I'd rather have Justin Jefferson for sure, though I wouldn't put it past us if CeeDee Lamb just explodes and proves us wrong on this question this year. I mean, I know Amari Cooper, the team can technically get rid of him after this season, after this part of his contract. I don't know if they will, but if they did, I mean, he could explode. I'm still not doing it, though. I'd probably take Justin Jefferson, wide receiver 1 overall for Dynasty.
Yeah, I think the Dynasty community just gets a little bit too obsessed with age and tries to project a little bit too far. I feel like sometimes people overanalyze a little bit, and that's kind of what this feels like to me. I mean, realistically, if I'm in a Dynasty draft, I don't care that Tyreek Hill is 27 years old. I'm taking Tyreek Hill before I'm even thinking about CeeDee Lamb. And I get it. CeeDee Lamb's 22 years old. He's got a huge upside. But give me Calvin Ridley. Give me A.J. Brown. Give me DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill. There are a lot of guys that I'd be taking before CeeDee Lamb. I think if you're taking CeeDee Lamb as the wide receiver 1 off the board in a Dynasty startup, I think that's just getting a little bit too cute with it. All right, last question, and then we get to the chat. Soda Popinski asking, pick one for each round. Round 1, Aaron Jones, Austin Eckler, or Jonathan Taylor. Round 2, Antonio Gibson, Najee Harris, or Calvin Ridley. Ooh, we got a wide receiver in the mix. Victoria, start us off. Who are you taking in round 1 and round 2 out of these 3 options?
Why is it gotta be me? I hate this question because you know who I lean toward, right?
Yeah,
and
I
still think round 1, this is so tough. For me, it's between neck and neck Aaron Jones and Eckler. I prefer Eckler. I think he has a higher ceiling than Jones for this season. I love me some Eckler. Wrote a nice spotlight article on him from Footballguys. You want to check that out. For my love for him. For round 2, I love my Gibson, but this is hard. After seeing Najee in the preseason, I have no doubt that he's going to be a workhorse this season. I know that offensive line isn't great, but we saw the Chargers have the 32nd ranked best line last season, aka the worst, and Eckler just got peppered with targets when he came back from injury. So why can't we expect Najee to be peppered with targets, especially with Big Ben with his old noodle arm? Who's he going to be throwing into, right? So this is much tougher for me. I don't know.
That round two one is really tough.
I know even Ridley is to me a fantastic in round 2. Come on, fantastic pick there.
So Soda Popinski, he follows us all on Twitter. He knows who our favorite players are. He did this one just to mess with us. I know what he's doing here.
I would probably this is tough. I'd probably start for real if I was on the clock, Eckler Gibson. But in this question, I want to say Eckler Ridley. I don't think I can go away from Ridley here.
All right, I like it, Troy.
If I'm in the draft, these are my picks. I'm going Austin Eckler. I'm coming back. I'm going Gibson. I'm doing what Victoria couldn't do.
Shoot.
I'm going Eckler Gibson, man. I'm going Eckler Gibson. Look, it's close between Najee and Gibson, but you know what? There's obviously a lot of positive talk about Gibson in camp. I just think he's gonna take that next step. So yeah, Eckler Gibson. I clearly like him better than Victoria. You know, she cheated on the dudes. So
I'm
gonna go there.
Big regrets.
So. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to have anything close to any sort of stamp of approval on here. You know, we're disagreeing a lot on this question because I'm going to Aaron Jones number 1 overall. This guy's finished as a top 5 back in back-to-back seasons. Aaron Rodgers there. He got paid. Jamal Williams. I mean, I love Austin Eckler. I've got these guys side by side at 5 and 6. But I'm going to Aaron Jones. Like, he's almost as sure as you can get when it comes to finishing top 5 at that ADP. So I'm going Aaron Jones there. And then Antonio Gibson. You know, I try not to read too much into the preseason, but I'm sorry, I'm not picking Antonio Gibson. I'm just talking about Antonio Gibson for a second. J.D. McKissic still had that 3rd down role in the preseason game. And, you know, I get it. You know, we kind of look at the situation. I know I was hating on J.D. McKissic earlier, and we all want Antonio Gibson to be a thing that I think we kind of trick ourselves into thinking that, yeah, you know, he's going to just, you know, get 300 touches this year. But J.D. McKissic carved out a role last year with 110 targets, and they're not just going to take that away from him. He stayed on the field as a 3rd down back role, so that worries me, and that really limits Antonio Gibson's upside. Najee Harris, as much as I think he could be a workhorse, that offensive line worries me just a little bit. Calvin Ridley is a guy that I think could easily finish as the wide receiver 1 this year. I got a few guys ranked ahead of him, but as far as ceilings go, this guy averaged 110 yards per game without Julio Jones last year. So for me, I'm going Aaron Jones and Calvin Ridley. All right, Troy, I've got to sit here and go through all of these comments and try to find some questions that we can talk about. While I'm doing that, why don't you tell the audience about our friends over at FanUp?
Sure. So y'all tired of the same old fantasy contest? You think you got what it takes to flex on the competition and win this season's hottest fantasy football contest? $100 can't really get you a lot of fantasy football. But what if I told you that $100 entry, you can win a grand prize of $225,000 and a VIP trip for 2 to Super Bowl 56 in LA and a ton of other weekly prizes? FanUp's Flex Frenzy season-long contest is the perfect contest for you or any fan. Sign-ups go through Thursday, September 9th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you download the app that everyone's talking about, FanUp, on the App Store for Apple. You have to be 18 or up. Restrictions may apply per state.
FanUp, just be fans. All right, we got a question here from Matthew Bingham, who submitted some questions, and now he's in the chat. Thank you for being such a fan of the show, Matthew. We really appreciate it. And I love this question. Cecil Lammy, Footballguys co-worker, he invited me to Broncos camp today. So I got to sit on the camp, meet a bunch of the guys, and watch it up close and personal. So I've got a little bit of insight into this question, but let me ask it first. How much does the Denver quarterback situation, Drew Lock versus Teddy Bridgewater, impact the offensive weapons like Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant, and even the running backs? Who is stock up and stock down in this situation? Does one of you want to take this first?
I'll go first. Oh, the Victoria ladies first.
No, I thought I was gonna say Dave take it. He was at practice, but
I know what Dave's gonna say, so I'm gonna tell him. Okay, so Dave has been telling me, and I'm still kind of iffy on the concept, but apparently what a lot of people have been saying, including Dave, is that Locke is better for Sutton and Jeudy is better for Teddy, or like reverse, whatever you want to call it, but pretty much it's a scenario where Jeudy is a shorter A-dot and Sutton, goes deeper. So it's a scenario where Locke has the bigger arm, Teddy's A-dot is shorter, so that benefits Jeudy. Running backs, I don't see how it's going to impact either of them depending on the quarterback. Hamler, he's probably going to benefit more because Locke has the arm. He's going to go deep. Fant, I guess I'll just go Teddy, because shorter A-dot. And so that's the way I would see it. Dave and Victoria, y'all can step in terms of what y'all think about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that I've been saying that for a while. It just makes sense that, Drew Lock just throws up these YOLO balls, and that's what Courtland Sutton does best, is makes contested catches. And then you've got Jerry Jeudy, who is just like, he looks like a veteran the way that he can run routes. He's crisp, he's clean, he gets open, and he relies on a lot of those timing patterns and timing routes. And I think that's where Teddy Bridgewater really thrives. Now, the insight that I'll give is, like I said, I was at camp today, and Courtland Sutton does not look healthy. Like, he doesn't look healthy at all. And I've been saying all offseason that Courtland Sutton is a screaming buy low, and I expected him to bounce back. He had almost a full year to recover. It was week 1 of the NFL season that he tore his ACL. And what I saw at camp today, he's got this gigantic leg brace on, like the type of leg brace that you usually see an offensive lineman wearing. He's wearing one of those. He couldn't separate. He couldn't jump. He couldn't cut like he used to. And he looks like he lost a step. So I don't know if this is, something that's going to linger long term. But right now, we're just a few weeks out from the season, and Sutton is not 100% yet. So I expect him to get off on a pretty slow start. The insight that I'll give to the quarterback battle is that it seems like the media and the coaching staff is really behind Teddy Bridgewater here. And you've got a lot of the fans that get excited because Drew Lock has these splashy plays. We saw the 80-yard bomb to KJ Hamler over the weekend. And yeah, fans are going to love that. But at the end of the day, the coaches are grading these quarterbacks on a completely different metric than what the fans are. And what they see is consistency from Teddy Bridgewater every single day in practice. So I think that Teddy Bridgewater does win the starting job. And I think that that is huge for Jerry Jeudy. And I think that knocks down Courtland Sutton and Noah Fant just a little bit. As for the running backs, What I saw were both running backs lighting up as wide receivers. I saw Javonte Williams in the slot. I saw Melvin Gordon even lining up out wide. I saw a lot of packages with both of those running backs. I don't think that the quarterback situation is going to affect either of them too much because both of these quarterbacks are statues in the pocket that like to check down. But I'd start tempering expectations for Courtland Sutton if you're not already. Do you have anything that you want to add to this one, Victoria?
Y'all covered it very well. All I wanted to say is that if Teddy's the quarterback, he supported 3 very relevant wide receivers last season. I'm already pretty high on Jerry Jeudy. I would be even higher on him, I think, if Teddy got the starting job.
Yep. All right, let's move on to it. We got a question from Freddie Hall, and he says, which New England running backs are getting cut? So right now, let's just think about the top 4 and talk about those guys if we expect any of them to be camp casualties. We got Damian Harris, James White, Ramondre Stevenson, and Sony Michel. Do you expect all 4 of these guys to make the roster, or are any of them getting cut? Victoria, what do you think?
Goodness, I mean, all everyone's going to remember from the first week of preseason was Stevenson just going ham for that long touchdown, but I mean, Damian Harris got most of the work, so I'm still pretty in on Harris. I don't know if anyone's going to get cut. The most likely to me would be Sony. He's been on the bubble for a while. That's been the talk throughout the offseason. I don't know if any of them are going to get cut, though. Think about Harris was injured. Sony was injured. Everybody was – I think Stevenson, didn't he have a short stint with an injury in camp? I might be wrong on that, but, I mean – these guys can't keep it together, so I don't know if anyone's going to be cut here, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess we can go a little bit deeper. I think Brandon Bolden's still on the team too, but out of these 4, you're still expecting all 4 to make the 52-man roster.
I'd say if there had to be one cut or traded, could be Sony. He probably still has some kind of value for another team like Atlanta or somebody else out there.
What are you thinking, Troy? You think all 4 of these guys make the roster?
I don't see why they would. What's the point of having all 4 of them? I say the only ones that are locks are Harris and James White. Like, I feel like they both have roles. I don't see both of them getting cut. So it's really a battle between Stevenson and Michel. But I believe that Michel might get cut. So I think they're going to go into the season with those 3. Bolden, who cares? But maybe he's on the team. You know, he's a veteran. But I'll say they go with those 3.
Yeah, I agree. I think that all signs are kind of indicating that Sony Michel could get cut, and if so, you know, that's just that's the way it's going to go. I think that Damian Harris is going to be the workhorse here. James White's still going to have his third down PPR machine role, and then Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, I wasn't too excited about him, but what we saw in the preseason game was ripping off a 90-yard touchdown, and that's not something that a lot of running backs could do. So I think his job is pretty safe. All right, before we wrap up here, Troy, do you want to talk about our Football Guys premium membership? Let people know what they're missing out on.
Absolutely. So if you're into shows like this, you're probably a serious fantasy player. You need to get Football Guys premium membership, whether you play redraft, dynasty, DFS. We've got you covered. Go to footballguys.com. Click the orange button in the top right-hand corner to sign up. We'll do the work while you do the winning.
Thank you, everybody that tuned in to another episode of Football Guys' newest show, the Football Guys Mailbag Show. Troy and Victoria, thanks as always for being fantastic hosts here. Be sure to subscribe to the Football Guys YouTube page at youtube.com/footballguystv, where you can catch everything else that we're doing. And we are just a few weeks out from talking actual football. No more preseason buzz. No more gossip. We are so close to week 1. I can feel it. I cannot wait. But thank you for everyone. Thank you to everyone that tuned in, and we will catch you next week.